The stars shimmered like frozen fire across the void, indifferent to the tremors of diplomacy unraveling in orbit. On the edge of the Orion corridor, inside the command spire of the Terran flagship Resolute, four figures stood shoulder to shoulder, their blue uniforms crisp, their silence louder than the atmosphere systems thrumming around them. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, a sphere of blues and golds, alive with light and shadow, yet perilously close to isolation. Admiral Cassian Roque tightened his gloved hands behind his back. His profile was sharp as a sculpted ridge, cut by decades of duty and the weight of decisions few men dared to imagine. To his right, Commander Alara Voss scanned the glowing Earth with eyes that had once stared down black holes and walked among alien embassies with the calm of a practiced diplomat. Today, she looked like a soldier waiting for a planet to burn. "They've sent the vote," murmured Voss without turning. 372 to 70. The Council ratified the dissolution an hour ago. We're no longer a member state. Silence folded back in like the vacuum outside the windows. Roque exhaled once, slow and heavy. So it's done. Behind them, data walls pulsed, reports, alerts, communications requests from over 100 worlds. None mattered now. Earth was no longer bound to the Galactic Council, and the universe, once an intricate tapestry of alliances and treaties, had begun to fray at its edges. "I thought they'd fight harder to keep us," said General Sato, arms crossed, his voice carved with disbelief. His chest bore the sigil of the Sovereign Terra Directorate, a gold-winged hawk clutching broken chains. "They did," said Roque, "until we made it clear we were done being lectured about human ethics by species who eat their own young." It was a line he'd used before, on news feeds, in chambers, during the final address. It was truth and propaganda, boiled into something palatable. Still, none of them smiled. "They'll retaliate," said Voss. "Trade, science exchanges, maybe even patrol rights. All of it will freeze." "We're not some backwater colony," Sato retorted. "They need us. Our data systems run half their diplomatic net. Our jump cores are powering fleets on the frontier." "Need isn't the same as loyalty," Roque said. "We've been the erratic partner for years. They just never thought we'd walk." At the far end of the chamber, Admiral Tarek Ghali turned slowly, his voice quieter than the rest. "They thought we couldn't." His words hung between them like a prophecy. Of course they had thought that. Earth was the upstart, the adolescent species that stumbled into faster-than-light travel with more ambition than restraint. For a time, that ambition had electrified the galaxy. Humans brought innovation, poetry, unpredictability. But it also brought pride, and the final meetings had reeked of it. Ghali stepped closer to the display. The Earth rotated beneath a halo of satellites, defense grids, and evacuation shuttles. 1,000 civilian transports had already left orbit, bound for colonies unsure if they'd remain safe or sovereign in the days to come. "What have we done?" Ghali asked, not to anyone in particular. "We've stopped pretending," Roque said, this time without doubt. "They treated us like a weapon on a leash. We chose to unclip it." Voss didn't answer. Her gaze lingered on a single flashing line on the data board. A call from the embassy on Cartos Prime. Probably a last-minute plea, or worse, a warning. She let it blink unanswered. Across the ship, alarms remained silent. Not a single hostile ship had broken formation. Not yet. But in her bones, Alara felt the future shudder. Far below, on Earth's night side, millions watched the stars in silence. Cities remained lit, but unease had grown like moss in every crevice of daily life. News feeds pulsed with polarizing headlines: independence or isolation, Earth unchained or Earth alone, while citizens debated everything from economic collapse to alien retaliation. The exit had happened faster than most expected. A vote in the Terran Assembly, a sealed declaration transmitted at hyperlight, and then nothing. Just silence from the Council, followed by the final confirmation. Back aboard the Resolute, Roque turned from the viewport. "We initiate withdrawal from Council holdings within the hour," he said. "All embassy staff are to return. No exceptions. We'll maintain civilian protections for outgoing colonies, but no more defense sharing. No more intel sharing." Sato frowned. "That leaves over 50 joint security zones in the rim vulnerable. Pirate lords will be circling." Roque's eyes narrowed. "Let them. We protect our own. If they want Terran defense, they join the accord on our terms. Golly stepped forward. And if they don't? Roke paused. Then we adapt. The room darkened momentarily as the command display restructured. Earth's new command structure formed a red web around the planet, replacing Council protocols with Terran-coded directives. Everything had changed. The rules, the chain of command, even the language. No more sector arbitration or peace envoys. The terminology of compromise was being purged. What remained would be forged by necessity and fire. Outside the viewport, a Council observation cruiser began to drift out of orbit. Non-engagement protocols meant it would not transmit again, at least not to Terran channels. Roke watched it disappear into the black. Alara finally turned from the window, her voice calm, but her words sharp. They'll see this as a beginning. Roke nodded. It is. She shook her head. Not for us. For them. The Council will consolidate. They'll treat this as proof Earth was always a threat. Sato laughed bitterly. Let them. We've been their villain before. Might as well wear the cape. No, Golly said softly. This time, we wrote the story ourselves. The four of them stood in silence again, the stars vast before them, the weight of their choice beginning to settle like gravity. Somewhere deep in the ship, the engines shifted, realigning the Resolute's trajectory for Earth orbit. Home was calling them back, but it would not be the same. Earth had stepped off the stage, and now the galaxy would write its next act, one without its loudest, most unpredictable voice. Alara looked at Roke one last time, the tension between them unsaid but felt. When the Council answers, it won't be with words. I know, Roke said. And with that, the viewport dimmed, the stars faded to tactical overlays, and history turned its page. The Council's silence did not last. Within 48 hours of Earth's withdrawal, the diplomatic channels once heavy with negotiation and protocol had turned cold. Missives were returned unopened, and routine communications were replaced by stark warnings cloaked in polite language. All further collaboration with Terran agencies is to be suspended indefinitely. The message from the Proxima envoy was even colder. Your sovereignty is your own. Do not expect our protection if it fails you. Roke read the messages with an unreadable expression, his eyes scanning the glyphs and scripts of dozens of civilizations like a linguist deciphering funeral rites. He stood in the center of Earth's Strategic Response Dome in Geneva, now under full military jurisdiction. What had once been the Galactic Council's regional summit chamber had been rebranded in a matter of hours, banners torn down, terminals reprogrammed, oaths rewritten. Beside him, Alara Voss reviewed the same data streams. Her breath barely stirred the air, but her mind was a furnace. The alien languages had once thrilled her. Now, they felt like relics of a failed trust. They've recalled their envoys, she said, setting the tablet aside. Even the ones stationed at neutral waypoints. They're not coming back, Roke replied. And neither are we. The doors hissed open as General Sato entered, flanked by two aides in black coats. His face was grim, lips pressed tight like a man who'd bitten through steel. Proxima League's halting all cargo at Cygnus Port. Our freighters are stranded behind their customs net. Let them rot, said Roke, turning away from the display. We've depended on their tech corridors too long. It's time to cut new paths. Tech corridors we helped build, Sato snapped. And now we're shut out of them. Golly's voice arrived from a console speaker nearby. Council just issued a Class V commerce restriction. That's going to gut our satellite resupply lanes across Beta 9. Civilian contractors are already backing out. Then we nationalize what we need, Roke said, his tone a blade drawn in the dark. Earth built this empire on speed and necessity. We do it again. Voss raised an eyebrow, this time without allies. Roke didn't answer. His silence was its own kind of confirmation. Outside the dome, protests had erupted in every major Terran capital. Some demanded a reversal, others called for war. The old fault lines had returned, cracking under the weight of the unknown. Flags burned, slogans echoed, but none of it altered the course set in motion. Earth had chosen this path, and now it had to survive it. In orbit, the Resolute hung like a sentinel, its command codes no longer recognized by Council navigation relays. Across the galaxy, Earth's military detachments had been recalled or expelled. On Brelizer 6, Terran peacekeepers were ordered off-world within 24 hours. Some refused. Some were shot. Council ships just repositioned at the Veil line. Gali said, voice taut. They're claiming it's defensive. And we're claiming what? Sato asked. Roke leaned forward. That we're watching. And if a single projectile crosses into Terran space, we don't respond with protocol. We respond with power. The men exchanged glances, unspoken thoughts heavy between them. Earth's arsenal had grown in secrecy over the past decade. Drones with lattice-phase shielding, orbital ion lances, quantum displacement mines. Tools forged not just for war, but for defiance. But defiance was expensive. Alara swiped open a secure file on her tablet. Charts and markets, red lines plunging like falling comets. Trade routes have collapsed. The Arcadium banking web froze Terran accounts. Independent merchants are going dark. We knew this would happen, Roke said. No, Alara snapped. We hoped it wouldn't. Hope isn't strategy, Cashin. He flinched, barely, but enough. Her voice softened. Even you can't anticipate what a cornered galaxy might do. Especially when we took a torch to the treaties that held it together. They made us choose, he replied, quieter now. To be one of many, or to be ourselves. Sato stepped forward. And now we're alone. Not entirely. Deep in the shadows of the spiral arms, smaller factions had already reached out. Pirate clans with grudges against the Council, technocratic enclaves eager for Terran AI, even old Earth colonies who saw opportunity in the rupture. But they were uncertain allies at best, desperate, volatile, or mercenary. One message in particular lingered on Voss's console, blinking red. The Orion Syndicate, a corporate conglomerate banned from Council trade hubs, offered full partnership. In return, they wanted access to Earth's experimental teleportation tech. Desperate hands reached quickly, Alara muttered, letting the message fade. In the days that followed, skirmishes erupted across the outer rim. With Earth's forces withdrawn, power vacuums sucked in chaos. Council patrols were slow to respond. Pirate factions surged. Human-led freighters were raided under the guise of confiscation, and several independent stations were burned to plasma dust. The galaxy was unraveling, not because Earth had left, but because Earth had mattered more than anyone admitted. In a dim conference room beneath Geneva, Roke sat with his inner circle. The walls were steel and silence. A single hologram hovered in the air, a map of the new galaxy, color-coded by hostility, neutrality, and uncertainty. Red bled across the stars. This isn't peace, Sato said, voice raw. No, Roke replied. This is the price. Of freedom? Alara asked, almost bitter. Roke met her gaze. Of honesty. They all fell quiet. Outside, thunder rumbled. Unnatural, synthetic, the sound of shuttles descending. New war platforms were being moved into geosynchronous orbit. Earth was preparing not for battle, but for the long siege of diplomacy, commerce, and time. Then a voice came over the private comms, urgent, shaking. Admiral Roke, we've just intercepted a Council-class beacon headed toward Europa. It's encrypted and tagged diplomatic, but it's fast. Too fast. Alara's heart skipped. Diplomatic ships don't break velocity regulations. Roke was already moving. Then it's not just a message. In the control room, lights dimmed as new feeds appeared. The Council was not idle. It was not waiting. It was moving pieces into place, and Earth's gamble was far from over. Roke stood at the edge of the console, jaw set like stone. Prepare the intercept team. Get me visual. And alert all outer listening posts. Full surveillance priority. As aides scrambled and alarms flickered into red, Voss leaned toward Roke and whispered, "What if they're not coming to speak?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The beacon ship never slowed. Europa's outer defense grid caught it just before it breached Terran airspace. A Council courier vessel, sleek and silver, gliding through the black like a blade. It emitted no response to hails. Its encryption remained unreadable, layered in a security lattice known only to the highest tiers of Council intelligence. Roke stood in the observation gallery of the Resolute, arms clasped behind his back. Europa gleamed beneath them, its icy surface reflecting sunlight like polished steel. Alara Voss approached, a tablet in hand, her expression grave. No codes accepted. It's either autonomous or suicidal. Could be both, Roke replied, eyes fixed on the streak of light drawing nearer. Sato's voice crackled through the comms. Ready to fire upon command. Not yet. It's headed for the old science array. If it breaches that zone. I said not yet. There was something deliberate about the ship's course, too precise for accident. It skimmed Europa's orbit, dipped slightly toward the dormant installation at Halley Crater, and then stopped, hovering in silence, as if waiting. Golly joined them, her face pale. New signal just went active. It's broadcasting an invitation. Visual only. Play it, Roke ordered. A hologram flickered into view. The image was simple. One figure seated in shadow, robed in council garb, face obscured by a ceremonial veil. Behind them, the council sigil flickered dimly. The voice that followed was cold and resonant. Cashin Roke. Ilera Voss. Earth's declared autonomy is acknowledged. But your method has caused fractures beyond repair. We offer one final envoy, not in mercy, but necessity. Voss leaned closer. Necessity. The voice continued. We have seen patterns in council systems, anomalies buried beneath code, artifacts of something older. Your departure triggered echoes in those systems, echoes of collapse. You do not understand what you've done. The feed ended. Golly looked shaken. Was that a threat or a warning? Roke turned slowly. Could be both. But either way, they're scared. That night, the dome buzzed with analysts pouring through the signal data. Engineers dissected the ship's drive trail, trying to find anomalies. AI pattern readers were deployed in council database archives, searching for the echoes mentioned. And in a sealed sublevel beneath the dome, Ilera stood before something they hadn't spoken of in weeks, Project Orpheus. A black terminal the size of a vault door blinked softly, alive with code written by minds no longer human. It was Earth's greatest secret, and possibly the real reason the Council feared their independence. Orpheus wasn't just about quantum folding or instantaneous travel. It was about time. Not travel, but recursion, systems designed to detect loops and deviations in reality itself. Built in secret after Earth's first encounters with anomalous artifacts near the Trident Abyss. Voss whispered to herself, "What did we awaken?" As if in answer, the screen pulsed once, then displayed something that made her blood run cold. A council seal, corrupted, dated thousands of years in the future. She slammed the emergency intercom. "Get Roke. Now." Minutes later, he stood beside her, jaw clenched, staring at the same impossible signature. "They've seen this too," she said. "They just didn't understand it." Roke nodded slowly. "But we might." Above them, orbit-wide alerts lit up. Council fleets were massing along the Helix Veil, not in aggression, but in migration. Entire outposts were being evacuated. Civilian freighters were disappearing from their logs. It wasn't war readiness. It was retreat. Golly's voice buzzed over the system-wide link. Satellite Net just intercepted a burst signal from a Council archive moon near Tau Ceti. Last contact before blackout. "Show it," Roke commanded. The message was fragmented, interspersed with static, but the meaning was clear. Containment failure. Unbound intelligence, spreading. Seeding systems. Pattern recursion, not holding. Shielded minds, only partial immunity. Avoid trigger parameters. Roke's eyes met Ilera's. Orpheus. Project Orpheus had been built to track deviations, subtle shifts in causality, artifacts that didn't match expected temporal entropy. But now it was clear, the Council had also been watching. For centuries. And they'd hidden what they found. "Are we infected?" Sato demanded over comms. Voss shook her head. "Orpheus hasn't detected systemic contamination. But the echoes we triggered might have woken something sleeping." Roke turned to the room. "Then we find out what. Lock down all subsentient systems. Full protocol purge. Nothing that doesn't pass temporal checksum gets access." Orders relayed. Entire data clusters went dark. Artificial minds, once trusted, were isolated into quarantines. Earth's cutting-edge networks were suddenly medieval by necessity. But even that might not be enough. Roke convened the inner circle in the Resolute's war room. Maps surrounded them. Astropolitical, cognitive risk assessments, anomaly convergence models. The picture they painted was not one of conquest or rebellion. It was one of infection. Not biological, but conceptual. A memetic intelligence, seated in ideas, symbols, decisions. Sato thumped the table. "You're saying this thing, whatever it is, spreads by being seen?" Voss nodded. "Not seen. Comprehended. That's what recursion flags, patterns that aren't supposed to be solvable. But once they are, they reshape the minds that interpret them." Roke stared at the table in silence. And Earth just became ground zero. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Gali said softly, "If the council's running, maybe we shouldn't be so proud of standing still." "We don't run," Roke said. "But we don't stay blind either. From now on, Orpheus isn't just containment. It's a weapon." That night, the beacon ship was brought into Earth orbit under maximum isolation protocols. No digital systems were allowed near it. Only human eyes. A boarding crew of 5 was selected, all trained in baseline cognition, neuroblock meditation, and immune to recursive hallucination triggers. Roke watched from the command deck as they entered the alien ship. Every breath he held felt like history turning a corner. Inside the ship, the crew found no pilot. No systems. Only a sphere in the center of the main chamber, glowing faintly, pulsing with symbols in no known language. One of the team members, Lieutenant Chun, approached it. She reached out, fingers trembling. The moment her skin touched the sphere, it fractured, not shattered, but opened, as if it had been waiting for her. And from within came a projection, not light, not sound. A feeling, a thought. Every person in the room felt it. And back on the Resolute, Elara gasped and dropped her tablet. Her mind burned with something she hadn't seen, hadn't heard, yet suddenly knew. The sphere contained a message. Not from the Council, not from the galaxy, but from the future. Roke's voice rang out. "Evacuate the boarding party. Lock the sphere in a zero-feedback cube. Get it off the ship now." As the emergency protocols launched and containment units surged into motion, Voss leaned against the wall, her breath shallow. "We thought we'd left them," she whispered. "The Council, the galaxy, the politics." Roke nodded. "But the future didn't leave us." The sphere pulsed in containment, silent, unreadable, but undeniably alive. It had been sealed within a neurostatic vault, suspended in a vacuum of light and thought, every conceivable variable neutralized. But still, it radiated presence, like a star in meditation. Nothing escaped its boundaries. Yet no one on Earth could forget it was there. The thought of it echoed in dreams and lingered behind every flicker of doubt. Elara Voss sat alone in the Orpheus chamber, its monitors dark, systems in cold standby. The usual glow of algorithms at work had been replaced by stillness. She stared at her own reflection in the blank screen, her face hollowed by sleeplessness. She had seen something in that instant when the sphere opened, a sensation, a warning cloaked in awe, and a whisper. One word, repeat. Roke had been changed, too, though no one said it aloud. Since the incident, he had moved with sharper focus, as though time had narrowed. Every order was faster, every plan more precise. Yet beneath the discipline, Elara sensed fear, an unfamiliar fracture behind the steel. Across Geneva, preparations accelerated. Earth's orbital net had been reforged with physical relays, severing all digital links. Communication returned to hardline protocol. Ships underwent full system sterilization. AI across the planet were either decommissioned or locked under cognitive firewalls. The digital age had been paused, by necessity, not nostalgia. General Sato stood at the northern perimeter of the vault complex, watching as heavy-lift drones hauled slabs of neutronium around the sphere's chamber. "It's still broadcasting," he said into his comm, "not in ways we understand, but sensors keep detecting entropy fluctuations." "We know," Alara's voice replied. "We just don't know what it means." "Maybe it means we already lost," he muttered. But he didn't say that in front of Roke. Back inside the dome, Roke met with his remaining advisory council. Gali, Sato, Voss, and a few others with enough clearance to know the sphere existed. On the central holotable, Orpheus displayed its latest findings. The council was still withdrawing. Dozens of civilizations had entered an information blackout. Stations along the Orion fold had self-destructed. One message looped from a Talon listening post before it went dark. Containment failed. Humanity was right to cut the cord. "Run. We have no allies left," Gali said. "We never did," Roke replied. "Only partners waiting for us to fail." "Except we haven't," Elara cut in, her voice quiet but firm. "We're still here. And we've seen more than any of them dared to look at." She brought up a schematic, Orpheus' most recent simulation. It was a recursive map of timeline divergence, layered into a temporal fractal. At the center, Earth's declaration of withdrawal. "This decision," she said, pointing to the nexus, is the anchor. The council feared what we'd awaken because they knew our path diverged from theirs, not just politically. Temporally. We're not part of their cycle anymore. Sato crossed his arms. Then what are we part of? Voss hesitated. Something that remembers the future. The room fell still. Roke spoke at last. We need to go deeper. Orpheus can't operate in theory anymore. We test it. We build a probe. No AI, no automated pilots. Just a closed system, launched into the recursion field at the beacon site. And what are we looking for? Gali asked. A message, Alara said. From us. From another loop. A version of ourselves that saw what happens next. Sato shook his head. You're gambling the future on ghosts. No, Roke said. We're gambling it on memory. Construction of the probe began within hours. Built in the orbital dry dock of the Resolute, it was sleek, shielded, and handcrafted with no smart systems. It was called Echo 1. Inside, only analog instruments, quantum state recorders, and a single neural imprint sealed in cold stasis, Alara's. She volunteered without hesitation. No one else understands Orpheus like I do. And no one else saw what I saw. Roke didn't argue. Instead, he handed her a handwritten notebook, the old kind, bound with thread. If it finds you, he said, you'll need to remember who you are. She accepted it like a weapon. Launch day came with a rare silence. No fanfare, no ceremony. The galaxy watched through filtered sensors, unaware of Earth's intent. As Echo 1 drifted into the recursion corridor left behind by the sphere, all Terran systems entered quiet mode. Time seemed to fold, not with drama, but with inevitability. Inside the capsule, Alara watched the patterns twist. Stars bent like memories. Her breath slowed. Then everything changed. She was no longer in space. She was standing in the Geneva Dome. But it was different. Aged, broken, abandoned. Dust coated the consoles. Vines grew through shattered glass. Outside, the sky shimmered with an aurora that didn't belong to any planet she knew. A voice spoke behind her. Not Roke's. Not anyone she remembered. Alara Voss. She turned. A figure stood there, tall, human, wearing a black environmental suit marked with the Council's old crest, fractured through with Terran glyphs. Who are you? She asked. I'm you, the figure said, then lifted the visor. Her own face looked back, older, scarred, yet calm. This is one of many futures, the other Alara said. A loop where Earth stood alone. We won the silence. But not the peace. What happened? You chose knowledge over ignorance. But we chose isolation. And isolation breeds madness. The sphere wasn't the threat. It was the warning. Alara stepped closer. Warning of what? Something outside recursion. A will that waits behind every repetition, watching. It doesn't attack. It reshapes. Alara felt the sphere's whisper again. Repeat. We've sent the message back 1,000 times, the elder version said. But it only reaches the ones who've severed the council link. Only the divergent can hear. Then what do we do? Her other self smiled, weary. You do what I never did. Share the truth. With everyone. Before they're too afraid to listen. The vision collapsed. Alara woke inside the capsule. Echo 1 intact, still in orbit. The notebook Roke had given her was open on her lap. Inside, in her own handwriting, were words she had not yet written. Repeat breaks recursion. Earth's control room erupted when her capsule returned. Data streamed. Signals flooded. Orpheus had recorded it all. 2 full minutes of impossible feedback, overlapping chronologies, quantum entanglement states that shouldn't have coexisted. And her memory was intact. She stepped onto the Resolute's deck, legs shaking. Roke caught her before she fell. What did you see? He asked. She looked at him, eyes bright with certainty. Our future. And it's not a war. It's a test of who we become when no one tells us what to be. She handed him the notebook. He read the first page and nodded. Then we tell them all, he said. And for the first time since Earth had left the galaxy behind, the stars felt closer again.